Welcome to the African Youth Voices podcast, where we explore the opinions of the youth of Africa. Here's your host, Sufyan Chubani.
So
Welcome to the
Welcome, everyone, for the first episode of the African Youth Voices podcast. Today, we have a special episode. We have the two members of the National Debate Team from Zimbabwe. We have the captain, whose name is Noku, and we also have his teammate, her name is Nyasha. Today, we're going to be discussing some questions with them, seeing what it's like to be on a national team, seeing what it's like to go to international competitions, and just to get to know them a little bit and give them the opportunity to share their voices to the youth of Africa and also the youth of the world. Why not? So before we get started, let's just start with our team captain, Noku. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Just tell us maybe your name, how you got involved into the debate community, maybe your home city, and what it's like to be on the national team of Zimbabwe.
Sure, that's a lot. Let me start with my name, Nokutenda Chimpetete, 18, and I live in Harare, Zimbabwe. So starting with debate, I love it a lot, obviously. And being in Zimbabwe's national debate team, it's been a lot of fun. I personally got selected at the beginning of 2022, end of 2021, after like a weekend-long trial tournament, which was a lot of fun. Mace and like the executives in our team put us in teams like with individuals from across the country that we didn't know. I was lucky to have like lovely people in my team. They also made it into ZNDT. And since then, it's been, a lot of fun, a bit challenging too, but yeah, that's me and my debate stuff in summary.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, next we'll go to Nyasha. Nyasha, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe just your age, your school, home city, and a little bit how you got involved in the national team?
Sure, no problem. My name is Nyasha Mazarura. I was born in Harare and I currently go to St. Mary's. My debate journey started in public speaking, actually. So me and my sister, I have a twin sister, when we were really young, we started going to public speaking lessons around the age of 9. And I started debating in about grade 8. As for the Zim trials, I was a part of the same trials as Noku, except I had COVID during those trials, so I think it was a bit different for me. But in terms of getting selected, it was a huge relief that COVID didn't impact my ability to debate very passionately. So I was happy to be selected, and it's been quite a journey being on the team so far.
Great, thank you very much. So just for our viewers out there or our listeners out there who don't know much about Zimbabwe, could you just tell us a little bit about your hometown? Just maybe a few fun facts about your home city. We'll start with Noku first.
Okay. Putting me on the spot here. So I personally love my city. It's the biggest one in Zim, our capital. So I mean, there's just like a lot of people, but there's like a lot of like cool pockets of like fun stuff going on. So I mean, yeah, like not just like cafes and stuff, but also like, if you want to get involved in like, I don't know, like African culture, or like you want to have like a really weird niche time at like a vegan bar, like those are all things to do. And I mean, yeah, it's just like a fun place to be. I wish it was like a more small town vibesy, but I love it for what it is.
Okay, tell us your favorite spot in your hometown, something we all should check out if we ever visit your home city.
Another toughie. Favorite spot in my hometown. Okay, besides my school, we have like one place that resembles a mall in Zimbabwe. It's not like what you saw on Disney Channel like growing up, but yeah, it's called Sam Levy's Village. All like, I mean, basically everything's there. So like a bunch of like cool places to hang out, shops. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, now let's move on to Nyasha. Could you tell us maybe some fun facts about your hometown and maybe your favorite place to hang out?
Well, because I'm from the same city as Noku, I think he summarized it quite well. I think I enjoy quite the quieter parts of Harare because my grandparents live along sort of the outskirts of the city. So I spend a lot of time there. So I guess for me, it would be more like the fields and the agriculture and that kind of thing. I really enjoy those spaces just because they're so peaceful. And I think Zimbabwe has some of the prettiest sunsets in the world. I think the whole of Africa does. So that's something I personally appreciate about it. I'm not sure if it's as interesting as the mall, but I find some beauty in it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hopefully, Zimbabwe can host one of the African Championships in the upcoming years, and we would love to come down there, just check out your favorite places. If you're able to show us around, give us a little bit of tour. So let's just take a little deeper dive into your debate background. So we'll start with Noku first. Could you tell us just a little bit like, how did you, or when did you realize you had a talent for debating, or this is a skill what you're passionate about, or a skill that you might want to pursue? Because, you know, we hear a lot of debaters telling us like, this is something that my parents told me I have a skill at, so I pursued it from school. Sometimes people just fall into it randomly, and sometimes just kids do it just because they're bored, but they find out they're actually really good at it. So we might be a little bit interested to share with our listeners like how each of you got started. So how about we'll go ladies first this time and start with Nyasha, because we've always been with Noku.
Okay, sure, no worries. I think in terms of debating, for me, it felt quite natural because, again, I said I came from a public speaking background. I really loved speech and drama, but I was horrible at remembering my speeches within public speaking. And because debating is more impromptu and you can show a bit more emotion and it's not as structured, I really liked that aspect of it, and it turned out I was much better at debating than I ever was at public speaking. So I did that throughout the whole of high school, and so yeah, the whole thing just seemed kind of natural to get to this point in the last year of high school, but I've really enjoyed it so far.
Okay, thank you. All right, Noku, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, maybe the first thing is that the passion I had for debate pretty like definitely preceded the talent, or like, you know, air quotes talent.
Okay.
I started when I was 13, and back then I don't think I was like, it didn't come too naturally to me, but for some reason I think like all the upperclassmen I looked up to, they did debates. So I was like, okay, I want to get good at this. So I'd go up and like have speeches written down word for word and still find a way to botch them somehow. But yeah, I just kept like shadowing those guys that I thought were really cool. And even though it didn't always go well, I just kept showing up and debating and giving a lot of bad takes. And then I guess like around the time people made like the online shift to debating, that's when I met like proper coaches, like our national team mates and like a lot of great people, and they helped me like get good enough to get into the national team. But it was a long journey of like very slow progression, but like lots of love throughout.
Okay, thank you. So just for our listeners out there who may be not aware of debating and don't know the benefits of it, what would you say, or how would you say debating has helped you outside of debate competitions? Like, how has it helped you in your personal life, if it has in any way? Well, how about we'll keep it ladies first, and we'll go to Nyasha first.
I'd say for me personally, I think debating just exposes you to so many global issues because you're constantly given topics on different things that are going on in the world and different sort of topical issues that you have to engage with. And you're really forced to have discussions that I think we don't usually have on our day-to-day. And so I think it just makes you a lot more aware of what's going on around you and a lot more empathetic to different perspectives that could come up on different things. So I think the way it's helped me is just by making me a more patient person. Firstly, I think it teaches you a lot of patience, just constantly being in
Absolutely.
high tension spaces. So I think it's helped me to do that. It's helped me to listen, and it's helped me to just engage with people on a different level to what I think a lot of people do.
Thank you. And Oko, how about your response?
Sure. I'll piggyback off what Nyasha said a bit. I think the global issues part of debate helps me personally because like sometimes it does feel overwhelming, all the big problems that happen in the world, and like especially like not just issues that happen in the West, but like there's lots of issues with African politics. It can be like really weird. There's lots of like queer issues in Africa that like seem overwhelming, and it's like it's nice to know that instead of just like only having, let's say, an online platform or like no platform to like discuss those issues and like see what solutions may exist, I do have that in debate. So it's like, it never feels as though those big picture issues that we debate about should like affect me or like, make me emotional. It always feels like I have a safe space to see, oh, okay, there is a way around this. What are other people's opinions about this? And yeah, it's just like a good thing to have when navigating a world that can be a little not nice at times.
Speaking of overwhelming, you guys have just recently won the African Championship, and you guys are currently the African champions of debating in the continent. So what was it like just realizing that you guys have won this continental competition when there were, I think, if I remember correctly, there were about 14 national teams and about 20 plus other teams. How did it feel winning the competition? We'll start with Noku this time, since we're on.
Oh, okay. Flipping it again, that's fine, that's cool. Well, it was definitely exciting. Like, who doesn't like to win? Especially given the amount of time we put into ASDC, African Schools Debate Championships before. We had a training camp, we were like sparring the motions between each other. And it's always like really rewarding, just like the happiest thing when like all that work pays off and you can be the champion.
Okay, and Nyasha?
Yeah, I think it was definitely very exciting and very rewarding. I will say though that those feelings were definitely delayed. Like during the tournament, it was very go, 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 get it done. I think for our team, it's very much we win or we didn't do anything, which is sometimes the wrong perspective in the moment. And you only really appreciate the journey and everything you've put in sort of after the tournament has passed. But I definitely think it was something that we were all very proud of.
So you guys do have the World Championship coming up in about 3 weeks. You guys obviously must be very excited for that. I'm also probably really tired of preparing and doing your spars. So for our listeners out there who don't know what the World Championship is, let's say we have Nyasha, just maybe a brief description of what this is. You guys are going to participate there with other national teams, but maybe you can share a little bit more for our listeners.
Sure, no problem. I think the way I always describe it to anyone who doesn't know is the Olympics of high school debate. It's kind of the biggest competition that there is for a speaker at our age. And what it is basically countries from all over the world coming together in one big tournament that's very short. It's honestly just about a week and very intense, but you kind of get into it and yeah, just debate is what it is.
Great, thank you very much. Maybe this next question can go to Noku. Tell us, maybe, I don't know why you're getting all the difficult questions, but sorry about that. Maybe tell us, what do you think was the most difficult topic you've ever had to debate in your debating career?
Okay. So there's two ways to look at that difficulty. I think this is a difficult question. Thank you so much.
So sorry about that. I'm really not doing this on purpose.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, like the first kind of difficult topic is just the kind that you know nothing about, which happens pretty often in debate. I don't know why like cabs like making like debaters cry about things they've never heard of. One example was when we got a motion about hostile architecture. And that sounds weird and boring, but basically it's about how cities did things like put anti-homelessness, like, I don't know, spikes around ledges, or built underpasses to bridges too low for buses carrying minorities to get into like the heart of the city. So it's always important issues. It's just that, whoa, what do you mean hostile architecture? What is that? Those things are always difficult because you know a whole lot of like discussion past the barrier of what you don't know. But I guess besides that, there's a second difficult kind of motion, I suppose I've never actually had a motion that's like not been exciting, but I'm sure some people have like motions that are like involve like maybe issues that are close to their hearts that they like feel strongly about. Fortunately, I don't feel too strongly about anything, so I don't have that kind of like difficult motion or difficult topic for me.
Okay, thank you. All right, how about the next question? We can go to Nyasha. Well, how do you manage like going to debate practices, having your sessions online, going to like competitions? Like for example, the WSCC is like a 10-day competition, which is like almost half of the month. How do you manage going to these competitions, going to training, but also academic accomplishments? Like for example, your homework, your exams. You know, I'm sure as a high school student, you have all of these requirements and deadlines you have to meet. So how do you manage all of that?
It's definitely difficult, and I'll be honest and say sometimes I don't manage it and it becomes a pick your battle situation.
Thanks for the honesty.
Or we prep this motion, kind of flip a coin and move from there. But no, I think it means having a good schedule, just staying on task, just making sure you're okay as well, taking the days off when you need. I think with anything competitive or with any competitive sport or intellectual sports, it's really about taking care of yourself because your mind is what you have to work with at the end of the day. So whenever you're burnt out, it does make it difficult. But as long as you just stick to your schedule, take the days off you need, drink some green tea, I think it ends up working out.
Great. Thanks. Yeah, you've brought up a very valid point, which I think a lot of people who are not into debate don't realize, like how mentally exhausting it is. Like sometimes you guys go to competitions where you have like 4 debates per day. Each debate is an hour long. Then you have to, sometimes you might have even an hour of preparation time. Then at least the judge will give you feedback and decision for another 30 minutes. And you have to do 4 or 3 of those a day. So I think you did bring up a very good point, like how mentally exhausting it is. And even for the judges, it is as well. But let's start with a little bit more about the WSCC and about like being African at the WSCC. Would you say you faced any challenges in terms of like competitions or topics? Or have you ever faced anything that you would say was like, oh, wow, that was a little bit unfair? Is it because we are from Africa, or is it because there's like a lack of African teams? Because, you know, for our listeners who don't know, like, you know, typically there's a lot of teams from Asia, a lot of teams from Europe. You know, North America is pretty small area, so there's not that can go anyway. But like in terms of Africa, there's always like a low representation in terms of judges and teams. So have you faced any challenges personally or as a team?
I think within being African, there's always going to be a level of bias that you do expect. I think the biggest one with any sort of public speaking is going to be a linguistic bias. I think one of the reasons why I've been kind of okay with that is because I don't have like kind of a more identifiable accent, I think, but I think judges sometimes don't take the time to listen to what us as speakers have to say and what we have to offer. And I think because a lot of the time our frame of reference is maybe different from the Western countries and that kind of thing, I think there is that little bias from judges sometimes who are more exposed to maybe the Western world and what's going on there to maybe buy in more intuitively to their ideas or their examples that they're bringing up, while all of them are equally valid. So I think those are challenges you do have, but at the end of the day, I do think like a winning case that is obviously going to win will push through. I think it just becomes difficult when rounds are very close and they kind of have to make that marginal decision.
Thanks. Thank you for your input. So Noku, maybe this next question go to you, which I promise you is a lot easier, not a difficult one. So as a representative of Zimbabwe at the World Championship, and also the numerous of competitions that you guys participate in, how does it feel to be like almost like an ambassador of your country for maybe other teams who have never spoken to someone from Zimbabwe, to judges who have never even judged an African team? Like, you know, I know it's just kind of like a question that's like difficult to answer because everything is online, but I think you guys still get some kind of interaction with the other teams and the other judges. So how do you feel being like an actual like representative of your country? Like, do you think that's like too much pressure? Do you handle it pretty well? I mean, you seem like a pretty cool, relaxed guy. I feel like nothing can get you stressed out.
That's usually the case, but yeah, it is a bit overwhelming at times to know that the sole exposure most people in the debate scene will get to Zimbabwe is probably going to be our team. Sometimes, well, I mean, sometimes it's a bit fun because you debate against a European team, they've never heard of us, and it's like, oh, yeah, Zimbabwe is this pretty cool place, like come visit sometime. It's also like, it's also a bit I think this goes back to the question Nyasha was answering about like, challenges that African teams face. The fact that we are so unknown and people sort of assume that, oh, okay, this is Zimbabwe versus let's say Singapore or like or Canada. It seems like a foregone conclusion. It always feels like we're working against that unknown bias and like, the weight isn't just being a representative of our country, but like carrying the burden of trying to create like to give some clout in the international debate scene. It's yeah, so that's why it's overwhelming, but it hopefully will succeed enough, and yeah, it'll be really rewarding.
Well, I mean, I would at least hope that the international community is aware that you guys have won the African Championship. So I hope that would kind of like, play into their way of seeing you as a team and seeing your arguments. But, time will tell with that regards. So let's have a little bit more about like Zimbabwe or a little bit about yourself. Do you think that debating is going to influence what you decide to do the rest of your life? Like, for example, I meet a few debaters who say like, I want to be a lawyer. I want to pursue the WUDC. For our viewers who don't know, that's the World Universities Debating Championship, where you get a chance to represent your university. So do you think that debating has influenced what you would like to be when you grow up or what you would like to pursue as a career? We'll keep it at Noku and then we'll move to Nyasha just so we're not getting confused. How about you answer this question first? I hope this is not a difficult one. It seems like it.
No. I hope maybe I should have thought about it more before, but I guess the best answer I could give to that is as I don't actually have a good idea of what I want to pursue like 10 years from now, but I definitely do think that no matter what I choose to pursue, debate's probably going to be a part of that. Certainly I am going to like come back and help Zim's WSDC team like years and years down the road because of how much it's impacted me. But I think in whatever like field you decide to go in, there's always issues there that have like that are complex enough that there's some discussion around the best way to handle them. I think debate does a good job of setting you up to like, lead discussions to solve those issues, whether that's in like creative spaces that I like that I'm interested in a part of, so that's like drama and like more literary stuff. But even in like scientific stuff that I do purely at school, there's a lot of discussion and like problem solving there that I think debate is just gonna the skills I've learned in debate anyway are gonna help me out with for a long time to come.
Excellent, great. Nyasha, same question.
I think for me, the stereotype of law definitely holds somewhat true. I really love the idea of getting paid to argue. I think that would be great for me. So I think that's definitely a path I'm interested in, but I do have a lot of creative passions as well. And funnily enough, that's something that I find is quite common amongst debaters, that a lot of people are quite creative thinkers. And I think you have to be when you're crafting arguments from both sides and speeches and stuff like that. So I've actually seen a lot of creative passions come out of debaters, and I think I'd probably, maybe do a nice artwork here or there, maybe something abstract because I don't have the skill, but I think that will come out later in my life.
Okay. So this is a question I forgot to ask a little bit later, but we'll just give it to Nyasha because we're already on her. Do you find it sometimes difficult to explain to your family or your friends what the WSDC is? Because I know like for us in Morocco, sometimes it's just like, wait a minute, what is this? Why are high school students representing national teams? Which I think is like something that people find the most difficult to like comprehend, maybe? Because, you know, whenever you hear the word national team, you think of like, you know, someone who's gone through high school, varsity team, university, varsity team, went amateur, then maybe went pro, and now they're on the national team. So that, I mean, that's what we experience in Morocco. What are you guys, have you guys faced any challenges explaining what this national team is to your friends or family?
I think in terms of family, it's definitely difficult for them to conceptualize kind of the depth of competition. I'm talking about or the level at which we compete. And I think they always try and relate it back to sports because I have a very sporty family. So they'd be like, oh, is that kind of like this competition in basketball? Kind of Premier League? Like, which football player are you? Are you Messi? Ronaldo? Oh, you're a no-name brand, we don't know. So they really try, but they're very supportive. And I love that about my family. I think in terms of friends, I think they just hear national team and think, wow, that's really good, and kind of leave it at that. But I do think it is quite difficult for people to comprehend how much work we put into it and what level we're competing at.
Yeah, absolutely. Noku, same question.
That's a tricky one because I don't think I've spread the word around too much about like what WSDC is or what it's like being in the national team. My friends and family definitely know about it, but then I've kind of like anticipated the same challenges Nyasha's seen with her friends and family. I just kind of say, oh, you know, in the news when like, you know, presidents might go up and like shout at each other for a bit, that is exactly what I do. But just like way more organized, and they're like, wow, you must be so good at arguing. And it's like, no, I hate arguing, but I love debate. And I keep it at that.
All right, we're almost about to finish with our episode today. We just have a few more questions. So the second to last question is, we'll just keep it at Noku for this one, and then we'll move to Nyasha to also give her a chance to share her answer. So I'm sure there's a lot of reasons you're proud to be Zimbabwean. For example, I'm proud to be Moroccan just because of our history. But if you had to pick one reason that makes you extremely proud to be from Zimbabwe, what would that reason be? Would it be the culture, the people, the food? What would be your answer?
Well, that's a lot of things to choose from. But if I had to pick one, I think it'd be something a bit more personal. I think it'd probably be like the kind of family, large family like idea that Zimbabweans have. So that's not just like your nuclear family, but it's my dad's like 8 siblings and like, you know, all their family connections they have, having grown up in the same like, you know, rural community. We often go to, I guess, like what you could call our family rural home, and we see all those people and I address them all as like uncle. And even though some of them, am I related to them? Like, yes, they might fail a DNA test or something, but there's like a really warm spirit of like community that I think most Zimbabweans would have. I hope it's not just me. And it always makes me feel like at home, no matter which part of the country I'm in. And it's just like, you know, how could you not be proud of that?
All right, thank you very much. Nyasha, how about you for the same question?
I think I really liked the word Noku used when he said the spirit of community, because my answer was going to be the spirit of resilience. And I think just with the people and the culture, there's just a different energy about Zimbabweans. And I think whether it's because of where we come from or maybe what we've been through in terms of our ancestry or in terms of the present, I think there's just this kind of community outlook that we can get through this, and we're going to plan to do so. And I think that's what I appreciate most about Zimbabwe, aside from like Afrobeats as well.
Okay, all right. So let's stick to the next question to Nyasha. So, you know, obviously this is the African Youth Voices podcast, and I think sometimes like the youth of Africa don't get a chance to say what they would love about their country, but also at the same time what they would like to see as change in their country. Like I ask these questions a lot to our debaters and we get random answers. So I'm just curious, and I'm sure our listeners are curious as well. If you could change one thing about Zimbabwe, what would it be?
I think one thing I would change is the way we talk about the country as people who come from there and as people who live there. That's probably the thing I would change. As much as there's different structures and leadership and all sorts of things that could be changed, I think perception is such a powerful tool in terms of how you perceive your circumstances and how you move through them, and how you spread it to other people and what other people think of the country and that sort of thing. So I think it starts with positive talk coming from us, and I think I'd love to hear more positive conversations from Zimbabweans themselves about Zimbabwe.
Absolutely, absolutely. I have to say, I think positive energies and positive outlooks can do wonders. So thank you for that answer. Noku, what was one thing you would like to see change in Zimbabwe?
So this is a bit of like an abstract change, but basically, when you look at other African countries and countries around the world, I think one thing that gives people the positive perception of Zimbabwe from the outside and inside are things like national heroes like Nelson Mandela in South Africa, and like we go to any Western country, they have their George Washingtons or like their Winston Churchills. And I'm sure like a lot of African countries and like that have the kind of weird fractured political histories that African countries do, I think a lot of them will feel the lack of, let's say, like a national hero or like one paradigm that defines like what the most ideal version of a Zimbabwean is. And the lack of like a hero for all Zimbabweans is a bit, I mean, it's weird. There's a lot of reasons why that happened, but I think one thing that would really help Zimbabweans and like people outside view Zimbabweanism better is probably having, one person, maybe not even like historically, but like even going forward, hopefully one day, like a great Zimbabwean wakes up one day, transforms the whole country, has no baggage, and everyone loves him. And the kids will write songs about him, and it's like, yeah, that would probably be like the most long-lasting, helpful change.
Okay. All right. Okay. So before we finish up for today, we have our final question of our first episode with the national team from Zimbabwe. So this is the African Youth Voices podcast. So it wouldn't feel proper without having you guys take the opportunity to share a message that you would like to give to the youth of Africa. So imagine all of the youth in Africa are able to hear this message from outstanding national debaters who are going to represent their countries in the WSEC. So whatever you say is inspiring. What would you like to share with them? And for this question, I think since we started with Noku with the first question at the beginning of this episode, it's only proper that we go ladies first this time.
One message. I think one thing I would say is no matter what path you choose to pursue or what you compete in or don't compete in, what's important for us as Africans is throughout the process to hold each other's hands. I think before anything, we're brothers beyond borders, and the sense of community we have in this part of the world is just different from every other part of the world. So I think just support each other, love everyone around you and make those conscious efforts to just make other people's lives better. And I think we can only grow from there.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that inspiring answer. Noku, the floor is yours for the final question, for the final answer, sorry.
Okay. My message, I suppose in the most Zimbabwean fashion, is probably resiliency. Because we're in Africa, you don't have like as many opportunities as you like. If there is like a chance for you to go and do something, even if it seems like it might not work out, I would say just go for it, man. Just give it your all, give it 1,000,000,000%. And it's like, just so that you don't have any regrets. And mostly because if you do succeed, everyone is going to, I guess, like cheer you on, and you're going to be an example for other African youth who similarly had like a lack of opportunities or resources, but still want to make it.
Well, that's it. You've heard it from the national debaters of Zimbabwe, their message for the youth of Africa. I hope you've all enjoyed our episode today. I obviously want to take this opportunity to thank the two outstanding debaters for taking their time, especially when they're only weeks away from the WSCC. Thank you so much for coming today and sharing your voices with us. We're really glad to have you, and we thank you once again.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.